the March 3rd meeting of the Properties Committee to order. We do have a quorum. All members are present. Good to see everybody. First item on our agenda is approve the minutes from our January 6th meeting. We did not have a February meeting. If there are no additions or corrections from anybody, then I'll move them as approved. And moving on, our next item is our Desert Garden Club Botanical Garden discussion with the Garden Club. Dave?
Good morning. Glad you could give us some time this morning. I'm the president of the club, and I've got two other members I'll introduce shortly. Right now, we just have to say thanks again to Carl, because Carl gives us new presents almost every week with the new greenhouse. We're getting excited more and more. It was just, the base was stuccoed recently, and soon it'll be painted. Next week, we'll see structure going on top. So it's like Christmas in the spring. At any rate, our club was originally a 501c7 social club. We've applied to the IRS to be a 501c3 nonprofit. With that, our purpose is broken into two facets: educational and charitable. It's the educational aspect that brings us here today. What we propose to do is the area at Beardsley outside the greenhouse. We would propose to turn that into a classroom of plants that are grown in the desert. In other words, we want to make it into a botanical garden. We would incorporate the retaining ponds that are there, but add many, many plants. We have, through our membership, approved $15,000 for the initial, start of this. It'll be a couple of years to finish the whole project, but so we're not asking for money to do this. We're saying we've got the money. We formed a committee, of which these two people behind me are integral parts. Jim is the head of the committee. Jim Consley is a trained botanist and experienced horticulturalist, so he knows plants inside and out. Pat Wanta is a professional landscape designer with over 20 years experience. So those two, along with their committee, have put together this proposal that we want to put before you today.
Good morning, I'm Pat Wanta, and I'm going to show you some slides. This first slide is where the greenhouse was. It's no longer there. The new one's being built. We've cleared the area of a lot of the plants that are reusable in the new garden that we propose, and put them aside so they will be reused. And as you can see, there's a pile of rocks in the front there. That's a retention basin that will remain. It's mandatory that we keep it there, but we want to make it look like a very stylish ravine, and put some berming on the sides, put some more rocks into the edge to build up the edges, and then dress it up. This first picture here, on the left-hand side where there's a number 2 on the top, that's kind of the area that we want. It's a section that we want to do up that is Arizona-type desert plants. This would also include some that come from other areas, but that are very usable within the Arizona desert. On the right-hand side, we want to do a Sonoran desert, which is all typical desert that is wild here, and that they can use or incorporate the wild plantings to keep the water usage down. This would include a saguaro and a cordon cactus. Both of them are going to be rather expensive to put in because they'll need to be large to show the difference between the two. They're both actually saguaros, but the cordon cactus is the saguaro from down towards Mexico as opposed to the saguaro that's the native of Arizona. This next picture is sections 4 and 5. Section 4 would be predominantly cactus and succulents. These would be the smaller varieties, so we can identify the different varieties that go within the gardens, and people can identify them and go out and buy them. We also plan to have them for sale so that they can incorporate them in their gardens. The fourth area, we want to put in some perennials that would be native plants that have flowering capabilities, and try to keep something that's colorful within the botanical garden all year round. Some of them will be interspersed with the other areas, but then this is where they would identify them and be able to save them for future use, collect the seeds and therefore. This map shows the section of the garden that would be botanical garden. As you can see, it's labeled, I know this is kind of light where it's hard to see it, but section 2, 3, 4, and 5 that I just spoke to. Up at the top, there's a darker area. That's where the greenhouse will be. There's a triangular area there that would be the meet and greet area in front of the greenhouse. And then we'll have it overlapped with all the different plants, a wide variety of agaves too, since we see a lot of agaves here. The bottom of this one shows that there's the Clay Club garden space down at the bottom. This is an area that is reserved for the Clay Club, but we intend to overlap some of our plantings into it so it looks as beautiful as will our botanical garden. The other things that we want to incorporate eventually, this can't all happen at one time, but as the wall gets painted, we want to add some brighter color up where the gates are that enter into the garden so that there's more activity coming in from the street. It's just a very bland looking entry right now, and we want to brighten it up. It doesn't necessarily have to be yellow. It should probably be our logo colors with the oranges and the blues, and liven it up so that people want to come in and have it colored on both sides, inside and outside, near the garden gate. Furthermore, we'd like to do something near the greenhouse with an arbor. We do have some shade cloth that's available to us now that we already have. We'll incorporate that initially, but down the road change it to a nice arbor so it looks beautiful. And we'd like to incorporate some water features, whether it's a bubbling pot of water or a nice fountain or a waterfall, a rock waterfall. We'll work things out as we go and as money comes in from our teaching and from our sales of plants. This would all be self-funded. And now it's Jim to talk to the money.
Thank you.
Good morning. I will be helping with the development of the garden as we go. Pat and I have already visited nurseries. We've looked at plants, and we've also been able to identify the soils and the berms that we need raised in the courtyards in areas 2 and 3. And as she mentioned, we'll keep the 2 retention basins intact, but we'll add some, definitely add plants to those areas and signage for all these plants. This is going to be an educational demonstration type garden that people will be able to learn how to maintain their plants, the low water use plants, and plants that are sustainable in our environment. So the first section is mainly working with an outside contractor to provide us with labor and equipment to install the berms and to basically place some of the larger plants. The second part of the budget will be the actual purchase of these plants. Now, I wanted to mention, we already have about 7,500 plants waiting in the wings that we've been propagating. So this will include collections of agaves, aloes, different forms of the smaller cacti that are padded, as well as the upright cacti. We also will have a few specimen desert trees in the area. As we all know, plants need shade to get established. And some of the existing plants that are there will probably remain there for a year or two. But like most gardens, it takes years for them to mature. So this is just the beginning. And the signage and the labeling at the bottom is part of the educational aspect of a botanical garden, a very important aspect. So if there are any questions, we could answer at this time. Yes, sir.
I've noticed other gardens like this that were handicap accessible, so the trail or the pathway through was so that wheelchairs could go through. Also raised to the level that, you know, if someone's sitting, they can see it rather than looking down on the ground for the signs. Is that in some form that you have or considering?
That's our intention, to make everything ADA accessible. And no matter what we do, we would come back to the rec center before anything is constructed or built. This would want to be compliant with existing ADA rules, regulations.
And Tom, I'll add that the new walkways that are adjoining the existing walkways are already compliant, and the new design around the new greenhouse is 5-foot wide sidewalks, everything is ADA compliant, including the greenhouse.
Yes, sir.
What about drainage? Are we changing any of the drainage out? When you talk about berms, I'm with Prides, and we have a few berms right out here on R.H. Johnson. And virtually when we get a heavy rain, we spend the next Saturday shoveling all the stuff that is on the roads back up on the berms, because in other words, water does run downhill. And so we have to get there. And as a matter of fact, we're now getting the county to come in and cut down the berms, so we don't have to do that all the time.
I've taken that into consideration as I've designed it, and we're leaving all the retention basins are remaining. So the berms that are added are just going to be around the outer edges, and there's ample space for that to drain as well.
Okay.
I have a question. Are you planning a secure entryway? And secondly, what hours do you intend to stay open?
Well, the secure part of it is all of Beardsley. The gates are locked when Beardsley is open. So from that aspect, it would be locked up at night and on those weekends when it's not open. As far as the garden itself, it'll be open all the time, that Beardsley is open. With the signage, it'll be pretty much self-explanatory. The greenhouse itself probably will be open, I'm thinking 2 to 4 days a week, depending on the season and whatnot. But like I say, the garden is a standalone. It is not required that the greenhouse be open for the garden to be viable.
Do we have any other questions for the club?
Yeah, I have one more. You talk about going into an area that was reserved for the Clay Club. Have they been notified and signed off that it's a good idea?
I've already talked to them. I've talked to the Glass Club that's over there also. and trying to invite them in so that they have some information that they can share with us, or some design aspects that they want to share. They have totem poles out there already that are clay, and they will be incorporated into our garden as well. So we're working with them on it. We're trying to get any club involved. And I'm glad that you're here, because we want to talk to you too about some seeds and things that you've got for the wild part of your gardens. Maybe we can share information and share products down the line. So I'd like to talk to you further on the outside of this.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, any more questions? Thank you very much. All right, now
Thank you.
we have to come to consensus to make a recommendation to the governing board. I know the Charter Clubs Committee has already done that, as well as BNF. So do I have a recommendation to support this project and make a recommendation to the governing board?
I make that recommendation that we approve this to go forward to the governing board.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
We'll go with Marlene. And going around the room, do we have everybody in agreement? We have no disagreement. So that recommendation will be made to the next governing board workshop. And we thank the Garden Club for coming. And we look forward to it. Yeah. All right, our next item is the facts and findings on the CC&Rs office and village meeting room renovation. We toured this it was part of our last tour at Johnson in October, and discussed it at our November meeting. I just had one question. At that time, the room had been sort of new flooring, and I believe there was an office being built in the back? No? There was already an office there, okay. And I also thought it had already been approved for funding. No? Okay, my misunderstanding. All right. Carl, are you going to take this, or Mr. Schwinn?
You want to kick it off?
All
I'll
right,
be-
Bill.
I'll be more than happy to talk. Good morning. How are y'all doing? Good. This is a project that has come to be. An opportunity presented itself, obviously. As you all well know, we've been dealing with this IRS tax issue for a long, long time. And in doing so, had worked with PORA to be able to legally establish some kind of a crafting outlet for our owner members to provide their services as they continue to do. However, based on the chartered club's tax status of 501c7s, we ran into some legal problems relative to how those clubs were operating. So based on all the legal consultation that we received, all the public meetings, meeting with all the clubs, that type of thing, basically the village store was given up just due to the fact that the revenue that it was generating was really not in compliance with the 501c7 clubs and how they were supposed to operate, thus opening up a facility for us as far as open space goes and what do we do with it. And so over the last 3 years, there's been some construction going on and some space utilization projects happening around various recreation centers such as the Kuntz Center and Beardsley as well. So as some of these clubs have expanded their use and their needs, there was a couple of things that have kind of taken a hit as far as that goes, and that is public meeting space for our owner members. remodeling the computer room, stained glass over at Beardsley. The Acacia room was lost or given up due to those expansions. And so the meetings that were normally taking place over there were displaced. The same thing over at Kuntz with the expansion of Weavers and the Patchers group. Another meeting room was lost there. And then with the renovation and the reuse of the shuffleboard facility over at the sports pavilion, which is now Lizard Acres Pub, which was serving as a meeting facility for several groups and whatnot, that has also been eliminated. So when staff got together and we were looking at what could we possibly do to, where are our priorities at, there's a couple of things out there that came to be. A, we need some meeting space. That's obvious. And two, about 2.5 years ago, the recreation centers of Sun City West overtook the management of the CC&R operation from Pora. These were governing board decisions that were made. They were made for good reason, I believe, because it is a self-serving public service to the folks that live here to make sure that properties are being maintained and managed in a usable way and according to all of the code and the policies that do exist. When Riley took the program over a couple of years ago, I think he was handed several files that I think totaled close to 600 open cases. Today, we're operating at about 20 to 25, I believe. James can easily speak to that. So our staff has done a tremendous job in getting this a bit under control. And so what we did with that program, since it was done, I don't want to say hastily, but it was done in very short order. We had about a month to prepare for that. And so existing staff were given the roles and the duties to manage this operation, but knowing full well we need additional staff, as Pora had, to make this thing operate. So the CC&R staff have been operating for the last couple of years in the hallway of the social hall in conjunction with all of the operations that go on there. So anytime you break down a room, moving tables, moving chairs, doing that, those office people are affected by that. The air conditioning in that hallway where they're currently working is completely inadequate for our staff to be. Recently, some improvements that have taken place over at Social Hall required those individuals to be relocated because of the fix-ups and the new flooring and the smell of chemicals that were going on when we were doing the floor. We have moved these individuals back over into the main administrative building at Johnson. And we currently have 4 individuals now working out of what was the lunchroom or a meeting room, sharing one office. And then we also have an additional staff person sharing an office with one of our recreational staff. I'm not sure how much, and I think we'll get into this on the next agenda item, but in dealing with CC&Rs, there are a lot of sensitive issues that we deal with. Not really meant for public hearing, not really meant for people walking by, learning about residential issues and problems, because they are very, very sensitive, and some can lead to, obviously, litigation. And so it is with this in mind that we've made this decision to provide CC&Rs some professional and secure office space to handle our staff and also handle the owner members' needs. That being said, our project manager, Mr. Wilhelm, went out, received 5 bids, I believe, for the renovation of this room. Anytime you put any kind of remodel onto any of your buildings here, Maricopa County does get involved, and today's building codes take effect. So there are some things that we had to have fixed. There are some things that are built into that line item budget that basically reflect that, from numbers of air conditioners, door spaces, doorway widths. Those types of things have to be renovated to meet today's standard as far as that goes. So the prices that you see in front of you reflect that. And so we are asking today that the Properties Committee review the facts and findings sheet provided by Carl, Mr. Finelli, and myself. And the conclusion thereof that we are asking for a favorable recommendation to the governing board to proceed in providing these two services to our, not only our staff, but also the owner members. I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
Any questions from the members? Linda?
My question is weren't there 2 desks? I'm more concerned about the furniture costs. That seems like awfully fancy desks to me. And I know there was at least 1 desk, I thought 2 desks in there, and all the shelving that they had for storage of those bank machines that they had to have for the craft fairs and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out where this money, considering this never came to Properties Committee originally, why are we back looping into this to get funding now once we've already started a project, I guess is what I am questioning.
Thank you. Linda, when the village store basically was decided that we were going in a different direction, the desks that were currently there basically went to other departments to replace existing desks that they had that were 30 to 40 years old. So it was kind of a hand-me-down effect. Same thing with the shelving. We had talked to Pora, since they were going to be opening a gallery and they could use some of our display cases and some of that shelving. We offered that up to assist them in that endeavor. So that's kind of where we're at now as far as providing new desks and new facilities. This is 2022. I think Carl and Riley can attest that they have gone through various brochures from office supply providers that provide this kind of material. I wouldn't say it's anything gold-plated. You're not going to find it in the White House, but these are basic office desks and materials that staff need to provide their work. Anytime we can save money and do pass-downs and hand-downs to everything we do, I think we're pretty solid in that effect. And Carl, if you'd like to add anything to that, please do so.
The current layout involves more than just desks too. So it's, there's existing 2 rooms in the very back of the village store. One is an office environment, and the other one is a meeting space, a very small round table with able to plug in electronic gadgets, and then it has the little break room sink area. So that furniture, the office manager's actual office, so that furniture, and then there's approximately 3 workstations, and those workstations actually involve partitions too. So it's not just desks and chairs. There's a little more structure to it. And that cost for that furniture / partitions is actually a cost savings versus building more walls. Plus, should we have any future change due to how that business is run, it keeps that room more available for change instead of having set walls and splitting the air conditioning. So just a little bit more to that package than just desks and chairs.
I had a question. So you're going to close off where the current door is and put in 2 new doors?
So you will have now a total of 3 exterior doors. The existing door that goes into what was the village store would be the entrance to the meeting room. That meeting room requires an exit egress. So the window that is closest to the lecture hall, 50% of that showcase will be door, and the other 50% will be storefront glass, a flat panel of glass. And then at the display case that's closest to Rip and Sew, that would be the new door for the CC&R office. And internal to the room is a egress that's required from CC&Rs through the multi-purpose room. And then the executive's office inside there has some glazing and doors, because in the professional business environment, you don't have sealed rooms for offices. So that's doors and windows.
Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, we have to come to consensus to make a recommendation to the governing board to accept this. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to accept this.
All right, do we have a second? Second. All right, and is there any disagreement on the consensus? Linda?
I would have to say no at this point, not knowing exactly what this is all entailing. I mean, I don't know whether I know we have lots of tables and chairs from Lizard Acres, so I assume this is all just office-wise equipment, but I don't know what's going on with the desks they currently have, whether this is full-time employees, part-time. I just think this is not enough information to feel like we can go ahead with this expense when we're raising dues on members. And I mean, it just seems like we feel like we have an awful lot to do and yet we need to have more money to pay for all this. So I'm not sure how important it is to have a new desk.
Carl, do you have something to say?
I don't really have any rebuttal for the desks, except for there is no furniture available to be used to share. I mean, Bill made it clear that the hand-me-downs got used in other places, and it was old furniture, so even the hand-me-downs were not perfect, so. But the cost overall for this project is pretty clearly broken down. The $122,000 is for all general contracting. $3,500 is approximately for the Maricopa County review and permit fees, and until we go to apply for that permit, you don't know exactly what the fees, so there could be some savings there. Fire permit is approximately $1,000 or less. And then obviously there's the $35,000 for CC&Rs furniture, which is actually $32,000, and a contingency of $3,000 for unknowns on the project, which is, we do that for every project. The biggest impact in this project is there is a new, all new ductwork in the for the air conditioning system. The old existing Del Webb infrastructure was all fiber duct, and it can't be remodeled, if you will. So to get the appropriate AC system in this building, it has to be new ductwork. The other impact is all the years of additions and changes throughout the lecture hall, rip and sew, and the village store. The electrical panels in this room behind us, if you will, the sins of the past need to be corrected just to make sure everything is up to code. So we've got a lot of circuits that need to this is that time where it has to be fixed, otherwise the project won't get its certificate of occupancy. But otherwise, the build out is pretty simplistic, and like I said, the reason for primarily the new furniture is to keep two open spaces as opposed to building walls. So.
You want to go?
Yes.
The only question I have is, will the meeting rooms be available to clubs or just to staff?
No, ma'am, it's open to all.
Okay.
I think the proximity to this facility, I think, works well for the governing board if they need to get into an executive session, if anything comes up at a board meeting and they need some legal advice or to call timeout to have an executive session. The facility's right there. But absolutely, as far as the owner members and various clubs wanting to use that facility, that's primarily what it's all for.
I maybe missed this, but where is the money coming from? This year's budget, next year's budget?
I forgot to answer that question. So after sitting down with the general manager and the CFO, Pete Finelli has put it in here, I believe, that, funding for this project exists within the unspent allowances within the governing board approved fiscal year 21-22 capital budget. Now, with that being said, allowances have specific line items, so you have well pump replacement, you have energy conservation. Pete is saying that that out of that $300,000+ of allowance approval, approximately $90,000 has been spent to date, and there is no other foreseen issues at this point in time, other than just really not taking in consideration the cost of this affecting a well pump. That would not be that would not be touched. So in truth, if no other allowances were needed, then there would be no effect to this year's budget or the future. And again, CFO has shared that very strongly with Bill, and everybody feels confident about it. So, and we still have the rest of the year's savings from capital projects, not saying that's guaranteed, and most likely it's not. I mean, there are increased costs on all the projects that I'm definitely dealing with, so.
Any other questions or comments? All right, the question, Sharon.
Just back to the furniture for a moment. What are they using for desks now, the CC&R group?
Riley, you want to talk? I mean, they've got, go ahead, Riley. I mean, folding tables essentially.
Yeah, I can address that. We're actually using a conference table pushed against a wall where 3 people operate off of. We've got a couple folding chairs, and we borrowed, I believe it was an old TV cabinet that they took the top off of for my lead to use as her desk.
All
I
right.
said, that's pretty sad.
I will add too that Riley went out to bid. We discussed it as staff, and everything else was more expensive. I mean, that's just where we're at today in furniture pricing. So, and to put this room together appropriately, there was no options in the used industry, the warehouse, everything's been bought up. So even in like going to Alita office and restaurant supply, there wasn't anything unless you're piecing and parting, and it just looks terrible.
And I would like to say, Sherry, back to your comment about being sad. What you may or may not realize is CC&Rs is a very unique division that we operate. There are a lot of highly sensitive and or legal things that come across these folks' desks that they deal with, and they really need privacy in which talking with owner members. We deal with everything from people passing away to very sensitive family issues that are being dealt with in the world of the HOAs. I'll leave it there because there's a lot of highly sensitive things there, but we deal with mortality and we deal with a lot of highly sensitive issues, and doing that in a somewhat of a public setting is just not appropriate.
Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to say in the last couple of years that I've worked with Carl, is that he's done a very good job. It's been very nice, and I've never seen him really go for the expensive. He's always very cost conscious. He always tries to do it at a very reasonable cost, and I don't see any reason why this is being done any other way, that he's getting there and trying to give us the best value for the money. And that's why I recommend that we vote for it.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question on the table. Oh, Kay, you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. My question is, I'd like a little information. You want the rec number 101631, Kay Williams. I've got a question about what is the exceeding capacity, Carl, of the meeting room that we're talking about that clubs can use? Is it a separate part of the room completely sealed off from where the other folks are going to be? And if so,
Yes.
how big is it? And
Yes, I don't have that number in front of me. I apologize. I don't have the set of plans here, but I can definitely relay that information to you. But the set of plans are, there's 2 different designations. The meeting room has its own, and it gets a much larger room capacity by code. And then the CC&R office space is specific because on the set of plans, you have to show the desk and cubicle layout. That's required by code. And so that's a much more restricted space. More than enough than CC&R needs, so we're covered there for, they have a little micro lobby and people can stand, and then you get your staff. So that's covered. But for the meeting room, it's got a really good capacity rating, if you will. Specifically what it is, I'd have to get that information.
I'd like to request that you have that information before this goes to the governing board workshop coming up, if it
Sure.
appears it's going to get through this committee, just so in fact that we I think a lot of clubs are very interested in getting some space back. And so, for meetings, and so I think that will be a real concern to the community of when it's available to use, how it's going to be used, and how much space is going to be for meetings of clubs, because like some of our smaller clubs that have general meetings lack a place to meet anymore, since, as Bill pointed out, we lost several critical rooms with the other remodeling. So just a suggestion, but I think that'll be a question that'll be posed when this gets to the governing board. Thank you.
Well noted. And we do have that floor plan. It's not here. Yeah. Okay.
All right, we have a question on the table. Do we have consensus? I'll go around the group. Linda?
I'd have to say no right now.
All right. Jim?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the majority has come to consensus. We will make this recommendation to accept the funding proposal and to the governing board workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, no?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
Just here for exercise.
All right. I seem to have lost part of my agenda. Oh, here it is. No, I have it here. All right. Okay, Riley's going to give us an update on the CC&R department. I am going to start prefacing before you start. You have a PR problem. Part of it is I'm on a lot of different Facebook pages here in Sun City West, and ever there's some sort of issue that is a CC&R issue, 40 people comment, contact Pora. And the lone wolf over here puts a little comment, no, you need to contact. The rec center does it now. Even people I've known for years still thinks Pora does it. So you got to do a better job of PR on this.
I appreciate that. We do have the rec news that we put out information in, as well as e-news. And I think we've reached a large number of people just with our presence, but I will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Roberta, if I may add to that, as you know, about a year or so ago, when we were having somewhat of a PR problem with our membership dues, and folks saying that, I don't use the swimming pool, therefore my fees should be less than what they are, or I don't golf, or I don't use any of our amenities, why am I paying for this? We put together a bit of a PR package. I know you're aware of it. It's a threefold brochure that we give to all folks checking in. We have at our recreation centers, and we try to distribute that. It's on the webpage, obviously, but it really depicts everything that your annual dues go to service. And we have recently talked, same thing, about CC&Rs, because yes, we do. And there's a lot more to it than just going to Pora. It's what you can and cannot do on your properties based on the 100 and some odd HOAs that we have inside the walls here, and then the blanket HOA policies that exist with the association. So yes, a threefold brochure is coming. And that PR thing we will get on our webpage, and we hopefully get in every real estate office around here that we can get into. And that, I think, will go a very long way.
Thank you. Okay, Riley?
Okay, thank you. If you would be so kind, Mike, could you go down to the bar graph, please? We'll just start with the bar graph here. Currently, we have 43 violations that are in process. As you can see, 23 are in stage 1. That is the first 21 days of a violation, where most of them come to cure. And then we go into stage 2, which has, I believe, 8, and that is when they've moved into stage 22 to 35 as far as days are concerned. Those tend to be resolved as well. And then as we move on to stage 3, this is where they enter the fining stage, and they're warned about the fines starting in stage 2. So again, a lot of those get cleaned up before they start getting fined. And then when you move on to stage 4 and 5 there, those are 50 days plus, and most of the ones I'll set an example. The stage 4, there's one right now that happens to be an age violation that's going into litigation, as well as the other 6 are either bank-owned properties run by HUD and/or they're in litigation, or we may, in fact, even have an injunction on that home right now. And then if you go up to the top pie graph there, that illustrates what we're actually dealing with. As you can see, 27 of those cases are landscaping, and then sprinkled with a whole bunch of things such as fence violations, RV parking, underage tenants, things of that nature. Sure.
You mentioned about the last stage there where there's 5 of them with repossessions and HUD. So do they feel they don't have to follow CC&Rs?
When it comes to a HUD property, we're not going to see any money coming out of that, unfortunately. They are truly protected by the government. And when it comes into us spending money, for example, to go in and clean up a property, we will never recoup that as we will with an owner member that sells their home. That's all I have for you today. And if you are interested in this, I also put this into the manager's weekly meeting, so you can always take a look there if you want to get updated on a weekly basis. Thank you.
Any further questions for Riley? All right, thank you. Okay, Carl.
Good morning, everyone. Russ is out today, so I will go right from capital projects into facilities maintenance reports, if that's okay. All right. Remember that our lists and items here today cover approximately a 2-month span. I believe we did not have a meeting last month, so. Capital project updates for R.H. Johnson. I'm very pleased to say that the metal shop is almost complete. All major project disciplines are complete. Maricopa County rough inspections, final mechanical trims, exterior paint are in progress. And we are happy to report that a tentative project completion for, my report says mid-March, that's based on construction. My working with the club and getting the club organized and reset up, I believe that the club should be able to open April 1st, so we'll get a little more detail on that. You want to save questions till the end, Tom?
Oh, I can. That's
Okay.
fine.
Moving over to Swim and Fitness Center. The hallways, restrooms, lockers, shower rooms, flooring project, both inside the fitness area and outside pool. That project has been completed. And I'm happy to report that we have a beautiful slip-resistant flooring in there. This project grew in its complexities due to very difficult time finding the right tiles and matching them up against existing showers. So in technicality, you have brand new shower walls in all those areas. And at the same time, we had a moisture issue in the fitness room where all the glue was coming up. I believe you witnessed that on the tours. So we took that opportunity to put in new rubber flooring after doing a moisture seal on the flooring. And man, the R.H. Johnson Swim and Fitness Center looks great. So I would say that if there's anything that could be changed yet, we did the best we could with the colors that we had. So in the next couple of years, the partitions probably are due for replacement. I would say that those are the only things that are kind of odd in color. Either have your tans or rust kind of metals. And the project overall is the modern grays. So, and then staff painted some really nice vibrant colors of our logos in the outside locker rooms to more fit our pool environment. So I think everybody will be pleased to use those spaces. Moving on to the R.H. Johnson tennis courts. The tennis courts were designed for post-tension slab, and then they were also designed to have a drainage system off to the side. Each concrete engineering was different. Originally, the engineers said tie them together with steel, And because of the post-tension concrete's design to expand and contract due to our temperatures, it didn't work well with the big cube of concrete that's required for the drain system. So we had to do some repairs where the two concretes were rubbing and constantly causing spalling, cracking of the concrete surface. So all those repairs are done. All the joints were caulked in, and I'm just waiting for the vendor that does our court resurfacing for another project. When he arrives in town, he'll do the paint touch-ups for that area in case anybody's complaining that some of the concrete repairs aren't repainted. But doesn't affect any of the court play, looks really nice overall. Environmental Services Office addition, the demolition of the existing structures are complete, and we are currently working on foundation preparation, and that project progress starts next Monday. So, moving over to Beardsley, club rooms and facility signage, that project is complete, so you'll be happy to say that the last couple of years of seeing old signage and putting it down on the properties report 2 years in a row has finally been accomplished at Beardsley. And the Garden Club Greenhouse, an update there, the foundation, interior flat work, and masonry walls required before the greenhouse actually gets erected is done. And the greenhouse manufacturer, Perspiant, arrives on Monday with the greenhouse coming from Colorado and the crews that erected coming from Michigan. So weather permitting, they will be here Monday, and they're here for about 4 weeks. It takes about a week and a half to actually erect the structure. And then they order all the glass, and it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get the glass in. In that downtime, the general contractor's back in there putting in the sprinkler systems, the electrical, plumbing. So the project is going to continue moving forward. We would like to see this project done somewhere towards the end of April. And we're working hard to make sure that that happens. Moving on to Kuntz, that area had clubroom and facility signage completed as well. Pebblebrook currently has just completed the trash enclosure. So we have a nice metal fabricated enclosure around all the trash containers, and that'll be painted in the next week. And then over their rear door of the pro shop, their masonry walls got a very basic steel roofing enclosure so that they could preserve the things that they would like to store outside that can be stored outside. So, and that gets metal gates and painted as well. Before I continue on, if anybody had any questions on capital projects.
Carl, on the metal shop, there was some concern that the machinery and the allocation of electrical, is that being coordinated so that we don't, that the machine will take so much electricity and so that's run and what have you?
Yep. So from the very beginning of the project, we did a very detailed inventory of all the equipment. A lot of it is old equipment. It took a lot of work to make sure that we understood what phasing, what power. That was done. That was placed on the set of plans. And we've moved forward with the reallocation in the new space. And just last week, or 2 weeks ago, the club leadership that's part of the project, Lee Schwartz, and some of his invited guests from the club worked with facilities maintenance, and we took all their equipment that was used in the car wash side, brought it into the new building, laid it out per the club's request, per what was marked on plan. Very little had changed in its layout from 6 months ago, and we had a very successful layout. And then, so that we don't have any mistakes, the electricians followed right behind and put the plugs and all the electrical per those pieces of equipment. So everybody's super happy, and I would say this week we are done with the electrical.
Thank you. I wanted to have that explanation so people could know that it was pre-planned and thought out and executed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have one question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but is the Metal Club going to have an open house? Are we going to celebrate this project? And are we going to have a walkthrough of the community to see it?
In the past, a few clubs have done that. It's generally, that thought process was always kind of started at the club level. I haven't heard anything of that. I've been giving tours to the governing board and to key staff. So I'd be happy to give you all a tour if you're interested.
I just think it's a great PR opportunity that maybe our governing board can jump on or somebody can jump on.
I'm sure the general manager can relay that to Casey Huta and see if we can talk to the club.
You want to move on to facilities?
I'd like to just talk about a couple other things before I move on to facilities. I'm into my spring project planning, and I'd like to just announce that we have set closures for some areas for the last 5 of 6 remaining projects. So over at Beardsley, beginning May 2nd through tentative July 1st, the Beardsley Aquatic Center will get closed, and we will begin the lobby enclosure. We will begin the wall and paint decor for the pool and spa. We will begin the demo of all the ponds and fountains at the end of the pool, take out the carpet, install the new flooring, and again, per my schedule, I'm attempting to get all this done by July 1st. Only a couple components to figure out. One of them, little group discussion here if we could. You all did a tour. You all recommended the wainscoting and decor change. We've gotten a lot of opinions on that. So, yes, we can paint over it. It's an expensive terrazzo. We would like to refurbish it. We would like to have a vendor come and do a nice large test patch in the next week or two and see if they can rejuvenate its life. It's a neutral color. It has value. Once it's painted, it's painted. I think the paint is subject to the marring of machines, cleaning the floors and stuff like that, where the terrazzo can take the abuse. Now, that wouldn't change the plan to go from above terrazzo and do a nice bright repaint of the whole room, other than the ceiling, of course. And we have a beautiful, if you will, sunburst decor design going on the wall that is where the fountains were. So you will see something that's reflective of an Arizona state flag sunburst in the oranges and yellows against the very back wall. And I believe our choice right now to do the walls would be like a very light, bright gray or something complementary to that terrazzo. And then in the spa, that same burst, but possibly in a blue tone. And that would be present so that when you're in the closed lobby and finished, you'd be able to see that new graphic carry through the windows and be complementary to that space. But can I get a little consensus here on if the route that I intend to go is to refurbish the terrazzo, you would trust that would be okay? Okay, as opposed to painting? All right, thank you for that. Moving on to R.H. Johnson, the men's club. Has a room refurbish, new carpeting, LVT flooring, and millwork that was approved. So that is closing May 2nd and will continue until complete into early June. Palm Ridge Pickleball, courts 11 through 18. The Pickleball Club and staff have agreed that May 30th, that those courts will be closed for 2 weeks for resurfacing courts 11 through 18. Courts 1 through 10 were done 2 years ago. And then finally, you also recommended the Palm Ridge wainscoting refurbish. I'm having a very difficult time solving this project. There's a big supply chain issue in this. I can find larger format tile to put on the walls, but I cannot find the small pieces of tile in the same manufacturer to do round edged coping and corner bead and base cove So I am not being successful in that project at all at this point. I still have multiple months to figure it out, but most likely that project will not happen in the FY 21-22 schedule. I believe it'll be a carryover project. I would try to get it accomplished and solved by the time I do the possibly approved carpet project that's been put in the budget for 22-23. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that.
That's where the cracking was at the bottom.
All that the pool environment has all the small subway tile throughout, and you know, if I were to go back to that same product, I could probably get this going right. You know, from a supply chain issue, I could probably solve it, but I don't think that's what we want to put back. So larger format, less chance for breakage. So a little more time, but most likely a carryover project. Okay, we don't close more than one pool if we can help it. So Beardsley's the priority, and then I'll focus on the Palm Ridge if I can get this figured out. But I'll keep you updated, okay? All right, any questions on that?
Roberta, if I may, just to kind of jump in on Carl's updated list. Carl and our infamous IT department are working together on the development of a capital improvement webpage, so that when you go to our suncitywest.com/capital improvements, able to click a button on our homepage that will take you to Carl's list, listing all the projects currently in construction and recently completed, with photographs to kind of keep you up to date as to what's going on as far as that goes. Just a little bit of an update. And then unfortunately on the supply chain world, Carl's absolutely right. I mean, it's a tough world we're in right now, trying to find things from automobiles to replacement trucks to any kind of golf maintenance equipment. For instance, Toro got off the phone with them this morning because we do have some pieces of equipment that we are trying to place order on, and if we ordered today, we'd see it next year. So it's not an easy find at this point.
Okay, moving on to the facilities operations update. Jack Stroup is updating that the R.H. Johnson Pool new umbrellas, 16 in total, will be delivered Wednesday, March 2nd, bearing any hiccups, so I'm not up to date whether they truly arrived or not. But this is the report, and chairs and tables expect sometime in the middle of the month. On Russ's facilities maintenance side update, the vendor is scheduled this week for Palm Ridge outdoor pool deck repair and refinish. I do know that he is on site. LED lighting installation continues as time permits at Palm Ridge. Facilities maintenance is back on all of the final light poles and foundations in this year's budget list. So we will be setting the lamp posts by the end of the week. Painting of the golf maintenance yards has been completed. All painting has been completed in the R.H. Johnson Aquatics pool locker rooms. So not only did I finish the flooring and showers and fitness room, but facilities maintenance repainted all spaces and put new drop ceiling due to old rusty ceiling metal and weathered grid tiles in the outside lockers. So again, that room is they just look great. So we are currently repairing and painting the wrought iron fence sections that are on the street corners of 151st Avenue and Deer Valley Road. Repaired 2 main waterline leaks, one at Grandview Course Restroom 5, number 5T, and the other one was at the Agricultural Club. And then finally, Trail Ridge Course Restroom number 6, we located the septic tank, had it pumped, and installed a riser for the lid so that it's locatable in the future.
Last meeting, we had talked to Russ about the signage coming in off of Grand and Meeker. The guys painted it, they took all the broken letters off, and they never put signage on it. It doesn't say "Welcome to Sun City." It just looks like a giant tombstone.
I'll just have to take that note and get information for our next meeting.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that stands.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions for Carl on maintenance or capital projects? Okay, before we get to committee comments, I would like to remind our committees that we will have the annual committee member appreciation on March 30th. You all should have received an invitation from 3 to 5 p.m. over at the Coons Courtyard. So we look forward to seeing everybody there on the 30th. Do we have any committee member comments? Any audience comments? Yes, ma'am. Your name and your rec card number first, please.
Good morning. My name is Linda Rush. My number's 131584. And I would like to bring up something that is not on the agenda, although I'd hoped it had been. Over 2 years ago, I started advocating for a medium-sized dog park. I'm speaking for the many medium-sized dog owners in this community who expressed to me that it would be a good idea and alleviate many problems. Dogs don't come in just small and large. Like people, they are small, medium, and large. The AKC says the most popular sized dog is a medium-sized dog being from 15 to 25 inches, 24 to 57 pounds. The sign on our small dog park allows up to 16 inches. Large dogs weigh 50 pounds or more, very large 65 pounds. Small dogs are under 15 pounds. Currently, there are 2 small dog parks and 1 large all-dog park with various size spaces in that large dog park. If you own a medium-sized dog and you have to fight with small dogs who constantly upset because your dog is larger than theirs and you're in the small dog park. I personally have encountered it myself, being yelled at, being told to get out of the park, told I couldn't come in, being told by a rec center employee that I wasn't allowed to come in the small park, although my dog is under 16 inches and is qualified to be in the small dog park. I was told by one owner that he was going to kick my dog. I am not alone. This has happened to other dog owners. I think if you talk to staff, you will understand the controversy at the small dog park. Many medium-sized dog owners won't take their dog to the all-dog park because the animals there are mostly over 50 pounds and they play very rough. And they don't take them to the small dog park because they get hassled. Medium-sized dogs don't fit in either. The needs of these owners are not being met. Last November, I took my dog, who was qualified to be in the small dog park, to the all-dog park to avoid harassment in the small dog park. A very large dog weighing over 100 pounds was running at full speed, chasing my dog, who was running to me for protection, ran into my left leg. After x-rays and an MRI, it was determined I had a very large bone bruise. I have had great pain. I have been unable to walk for weeks. I've had done months of physical therapy, and I am still experiencing pain. I've been told it would take a year to heal. I believe this wouldn't have happened if I'd had another place to take my dog. Over the 2 years before my injury, I have met with Roberta, who told me at that time she would look into it. It never made the agenda. I emailed many times to ask why this couldn't be done. I met with Riley, rec center manager at the time, and Jack Stroop about my requests and concerns. I was told they would bring it up at the next meeting. That never happened. I was always told it would be too expensive or that it couldn't be done because of reseeding. In December, I was told by the rec center staff that a medium-sized dog park was in the works. Again, it is not on the agenda. I request respectfully that this be put on the next month's agenda. This needs to be addressed. Thank you very much. I will be attending the next meeting.
Thank you. I am working on a dog park project. I was waiting to get it finalized before I put it on the agenda. So it hasn't been forgotten. All right. All right. Any other audience comments? Hearing nothing else for the agenda, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Oh, we'll see everybody next month on April 7th. Okay, thank you.